Hi guys, welcome to session 2 of the Marriage Clinic. So today I'm going to be going over the base fundamentals of communication. I like to start off with this very early on because it's so important to doing couples therapy well. And it's really important skill to teach the couple early on. So we're just going to go over the very basics today, but it works really well. It'll probably get you the couple halfway there to being able to communicate effectively. So I'm going to start off the video speaking to the therapist watching this. Again, this video series is both for couples that are struggling in their relationship as well as for clinicians that work with couples. This includes licensed professional counselors, clinical social workers, psychologists, even life coaches or relationship coaches, anyone that works with couples. So I'm going to start off by explaining from the perspective of the therapist or the clinician how to start off their sessions, at least from my perspective. And then I'm going to go into these communication skills that will be helpful for both the clinicians and for couples that are watching this. So the first thing I like to do when I first see a couple, and it's the first session, I like to get, of course, a little summary of the situation, of the issues that the couple is experiencing that they'd like to work through. Pretty general. Every therapist has their way of doing it. And then what I like to do is I like to ask them for a communication sample. And what this is you ask the couple to speak to each other while pretending as if you're not in the room, you being the therapist. The purpose of this is so you can get an idea of what their natural communication looks like. Reality of it is most couples aren't going to go 100% of what they're naturally like because you are in the room, but it still gives you somewhat of an idea of what their communication looks like. So we call this a communication sample. While they're communicating, try not to make eye contact with them. I like to, have my notepad, so I'll look down at my notes and I'll be listening. And they know that I'm listening, and that's fine. That's the point. So once you start the communication sample, what you're going to see is that the conversation is going to escalate pretty quickly, usually. I've yet to see a couple where it stays civilized, and if it does, it means that they're not actually communicating naturally. They're too self-conscious about me being there in the room. But usually that doesn't happen. So what's going to happen is that, again, conversation is going to start to escalate. It's probably going to be lots of invalidation of one partner to the other. Or even if they're not directly invalidating what the other person is saying, what you're going to see is each partner listening just to respond. And if you're a therapist that's worked with couples, you know what I'm talking about. One person says one thing, that person responds and brings in something else. You see defensiveness, maybe some criticism about the other partner. But basically, you start to see that it's really not getting anywhere. And these types of conversations are pretty natural. If you're a couple that's seeing this, you probably know what I'm talking about too. You probably have frustrating conversations with your partner where it feels like you're not being heard and your partner's not getting you. And then emotions start to get negative, maybe some yelling, some attacking or blaming, etc., etc. That's one phase. Maybe if you're a couple, you might have moved beyond that where now you're actually just avoiding talking about a lot of topics because you know that this is what's going to happen. Anyways, so as you're doing this communication sample, as you start to see the conversation escalating, you let it go for a little while. Let it be. It's up to you really. You can decide when you want to ask them to stop. Usually after about a couple of minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, I'll usually have the couple stop. Though you can go longer. It's also a great opportunity to get a lot of information about some underlying issues that the couple goes through. It's very often that key themes will appear in the communication sample. So anyways, once you think that you've gotten enough information about their communication style, that's when you interject and you say, thank you guys for speaking. I'm going to ask you guys to stop talking now and I'm going to give some feedback. The next thing you want to do at this point is that you want to summarize both perspectives, at least some of the key points. Odds are they're going to have flown through several topics just in a matter of a few minutes, maybe 10, 12, or a dozen or more topics even, which is very natural. And that's why a lot of these conversations are so frustrating for couples because it feels like you're not really getting anywhere, but you're also going through so many different topics, but yet none of them are getting resolved. So what you want to do as a therapist once you stop them is to summarize some of the key things each partner said. Say Jeff and Sally, right? Jeff, it sounds like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and this, that, and the other. And then you switch over to Sally. And Sally, it sounds like you're going through this and that it really bothers you when Jeff does, et cetera, and it makes you feel X, Y, and Z. Now, what you want to do next is, this is where I usually find it's good to introduce the communication skills, which is what I'm going to talk about now. I call this exercise expressor listener. There's a handout for this. At some point I'll try to include a link to a document or something so you guys can refer to it. But I just want you guys to at least understand the main steps in it. And really, we're only going to go over 2 steps today. There's many other steps you can add on later. But at the very beginning, just to get across how important these 2 steps are, I encourage you guys to just keep it at that. Okay, so it's called expressor listener, and what happens is that each partner takes on the role of either the expressor or the listener. The expressor is going to be the one that expresses and communicates about a particular issue or topic, and the listener is going to be just that. They're going to be the listener that listens to the expressor. You reassure each partner that they're each going to have a turn to be the expressor, and they're each going to have a turn to be the listener. They can decide who wants to be first. And here's the main step for the expressor. Whenever the expressor starts communicating, he or she should always start with the following words: I feel. It's as simple as that, but you're going to be astounded about how effective it is to keep the conversations in control. So they're going to say, I feel, and then they're going to insert an emotion. And then they're going to talk about what situation makes them feel that emotion. Now, this is very different from what people naturally do. It's very natural for people to start off by saying you. You always do this, or you did that, or you're doing this, and it's doing this to me. The problem with that is that whenever you start off a statement with the word you, instantly your partner is going to go into defensive mode. They're going to feel like they're being attacked and they have to justify themselves. But the reality of it is that we're not, what this core issue isn't what the partner is doing. The core issue is how that partner is making you feel when they do something or they don't do something. See the difference? Really, the core of it is your experience that you're going through. And usually it's a negative experience, right? So that's what you want to make the central focus of the conversation, not what your partner is doing. That's why whenever you're expressing something that might make your partner upset or it might be a negative topic, you always want to start with the phrase, I feel blank. And then you insert an emotion, frustrated, angry, sad, disappointed, whatever it might be. And then you go on to say what situation makes you feel that way. This way, when the partner hears it, their focus is on your emotional experience. This other beauty about starting with this is that your partner can't invalidate how you feel, right? They can always defend what they did or say that's not true, etc., if you're focusing on an action. But they can't say, no, you don't feel disappointed, or no, you don't feel angry, right? That doesn't make sense. No one would do that. So it works out best for both of you. It makes your partner more receptive to what you're saying rather than defensive, and it makes it sure that you're not going to be invalidated about your experience. So do that. I feel blank. Don't say I feel like. If you say like, it means you're not actually mentioning an emotion. It's like, I feel like you always do this. That's not an emotion. So remember, I feel, insert emotion, and then express the situation. That's the job of the expressor. Now for the listener, you have an even more important job in what you're going to do. And this is something that if both partners can master the role of the listener and what they have to do well, then you're almost guaranteed to have a smooth sailing relationship. Of course, there's other underlying issues and themes in the relationship that have to be sorted out and understood. So that's something else. But at least in terms of communication, this step is really important. And what is it? It's called reflection. And it's very simple, yet surprisingly very difficult to do if you're not used to doing it. And all it is reflecting back what your partner said in just a summary, without adding any interpretation, adding any meaning. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be trying to solve the problem. All you're doing is reflecting back what your partner said. So you say something like, I understand that you feel accept XYZ when I do XYZ. Did I get that right? That's really all you have to do. It sounds simple, but I dare you to try it, right? If you're a couple and your partner's not watching this, and you're just watching this by yourself, I dare you to, next time you talk to your partner, to summarize what they just said, and then don't say anything else. Don't add any more to it, and just see what happens. I'm not even gonna talk about it because I think it's better for you to experience it on your own. So, a quick run through, right? I don't have someone else here to practice it with, but I'll show you kind of what it's like. Say something like, you're with your partner, the expressor, you'd say something like, I feel frustrated when I come home after work and I see that there's already a pile of dishes in the sink because you didn't wash your dishes from the night before. Okay, that's the expressor. The listener comes in and says, okay, I understand that you feel frustrated when you come home from work and you see my dishes in the sink because I hadn't washed them the night before. Is that right? Expressor, yeah, that's right. End of communication. Sounds very simple, but these are two very fundamental communication skills that we're not taught oftentimes, and because of that, it causes a lot of problematic communication in the couple. So I want you guys to try this. I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. We're gonna be adding more steps to this, but try it out and see how it works. And I just want to give you a quick example of what happens when you don't use I feel, right? Say something like, you heard me say it with using I feel. Let's listen to it without using I feel. You never wash the dishes, and then I come home from work and the sink is full of them, and it makes me feel really frustrated. Do you see how attacking that felt? How critical? It's hard to even not feel hurt as the other partner when you hear that, just because it started with you, as opposed to saying, I feel frustrated when I come home from work because you didn't wash the dishes. It's very subtle, but it really helps to unlock a lot of the kinks in communication when it doesn't, when communication's bad. All right, so remember, 2 steps. What are they? I feel, and then an emotion, and then the listener summarizes what the person said without trying to solve the problem or interpret what their partner said. That's it. All right, this is the fundamentals. We're going to be going into a lot more interesting stuff moving forward, but this is something that it needs practice. Don't think you're going to get it right the first time, but try to incorporate this into your regular communication, and we're going to be coming back to it more often come in our following sessions. All right, see you guys soon.